I'm Brian Babin, and I represent the Texas 36th District, which is over on the other side of this great state. My district is Houston over to Orange County on the Louisiana border. And I just want to tell you that we have a congressional group here of 13 members of Congress, a very diverse group, if you will, from 11 different states. And you're gonna get to hear from all of us, and plus we have some special guests that we're going to introduce here to you here in just a little bit. But just what we've seen so far on this trip, I think has been greatly disturbing to me and to several others, all of us here that are seeing these. Illegal alien apprehension numbers are at a 20-year high. Deportations are at the lowest on record. More than 350,000 illegal aliens have been apprehended just the last 2 months. 178,000 illegals apprehended in April, which is a 944% increase from last year. And you're going to hear some more stunning numbers of gotaways and what's happening since the advent of the Biden administration. We heard President Biden, who named Vice President Harris to be our border czar, and we can tell you this, that we invited her on our last delegation that we came to, which was at the other end of the state, down in the Rio Grande Valley, in McAllen and Brownsville and that area, and we never heard anything back from the Vice President. If she's going to be the border security czar, she needs to come down here and see what's going on. Obviously, President Biden doesn't have any plans to do that as well. But this is nothing short of a humanitarian disaster, which they continuously say that is not happening. They say that the border is secure, that people are being turned back. Well, I can tell you that the border is anything but secure. We have also seen that drugs, which kill over 70,000 Americans each year, drugs are up an enormous amount. We heard this morning, I thought fentanyl, for example, was up about 250%. We heard this morning it's up between 600 and 700% just since the advent of the Biden administration. Fentanyl seizures are way up. The CBP is being pulled off the front lines. The Washington Times reported that Texas border agents spend less than 50% of their time patrolling the border. Most of their time, they're babysitters. They're taking care of the influx of unaccompanied minors and also leaving our border unguarded. That is very bad. The ones who are in charge de facto in control of our border, folks, I hate to tell you, but it's the drug cartels from Mexico. We've got thousands and thousands of individuals that are coming in illegally. Each one of these individuals pays up to, and you'll hear this later from our Border Patrol Council members, each one pays $4,000 or $5,000 apiece to be able to come in here. So they're basically in control of our border. The cost of illegal immigration, I hate to say this as well. We know that we're spending millions of dollars. We heard when I was in the other side of the state 6 weeks ago that we were spending $60 million a week on HHS facilities. We were at the Fort Bliss facility this morning. We asked specific questions about costs. They couldn't answer the question. We don't know. And that, to me, is stunning that we would not know how you would not have that information. These policies that were implemented during President Trump's administration, which basically had our border under more control than we've ever had it, at least in my lifetime, have been dispensed with. Many of them are on the way out the door. Our MPP, Remain in Mexico policy, we're winding that down. Title 42, the public health restrictions, those are not being utilized the way they were during the Trump administration, and we're seeing the results. Why could the Biden administration want to have a situation like this to enable our country to be jeopardized the way it's being? All I can think of is they're looking at it as a registered voter population, a new voter bloc to come in to replace the American electorate. That's the only thing I can figure here. his campaign, Biden's campaign rhetoric incentivized. He started it when he was a candidate. He incentivized illegal immigration. He has stopped these policies that did work, and he needs. How do we fix this problem? Re-implement these policies that worked. That's what's got to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and invite some of my other colleagues up here. Is Judge Carter? Come on up here from Texas. He is from the District 31 in Texas. There's 2 Texans on board here, and we appreciate you. Let's hear what you have to say.
I've just had a procedure on my voice, so it's kind of bad. We watched 4 buses pull out of a facility to move children to wherever they're going to go in the United States. And in our conversations, we've learned that we're moving adults and children all over the United States after they cross our border. Texas has a 1,200 plus mile border with our neighbors to the south. But I want everybody to know it's not just our problem. All those buses are taking people all over the 50 states in this union. And the problems are going to be, how do you educate these people? How do you provide health care for these people? How do you make sure they have a safe community to live in? How do you prevent criminal activity in your state or your city? This is real-time change of America. And people better wake up and just not just think, oh, it's just a border state problem. It's an entire 50-state problem. And we'll take the politics out of it, wake up and realize tomorrow a busload of people, you don't know where they're from or what happened to them, could arrive in your city. And we don't know what the consequences will be. I hope everybody will think about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Now, for the representative from Florida 12th, Gus Bilirakis. Where are you, Gus? Here we go.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Brian. Thank you, Brian, for leading up this trip and inviting me. I'm from the Tampa Bay area, and as Judge Carter said, we're not thinking of the long-term consequences of this. This is a crisis, folks. It's a real crisis, and the Trump administration is making some great progress. But it looks like we've gone backwards now, and this can't happen. This should not be a partisan issue. As a matter of fact, I know that Brian Babin invited Democrats to be here with us, but you see there are 13 Republicans here, including myself, and the Democrats did not want to come for some reason. We should be able to solve this. This is a real crisis, ladies and gentlemen. The drug issue, it's affecting all of our districts. Fentanyl, 600% increase since January 1st. We thought it was lower. We found out that cocaine, there's a significant amount of increase there. Opioids, the only decrease has been in marijuana because some of these states have legalized marijuana. Folks, where is Vice President Kamala Harris? For the last 60 days, she was appointed 60 days ago to be the border czar, and she hasn't appeared yet. We can get this done if we work together. So I want to thank you very much, again, Brian, for giving me the opportunity. I want to commend our Border Patrol agents who are doing an outstanding job, but they need help. They can't do it by themselves. They need help. They need help from this Congress. They need help from this administration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. And now from California 4th District, Tom McClintock. Okay. Sir.
Well, this is my third tour of the southern border in the last 2 months. That is 3 more visits than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris combined. And what I have seen at each of these visits absolutely terrifies me. We are long past any discussion over whether this is a border crisis. The question now is whether we have a border at all. And from what I have seen, the answer is no. And if this country has no borders, it is no longer a country. It is simply a vast international territory between Canada and Mexico, both of which, by the way, have immigration laws that they actually enforce. What we saw today, an HHS facility holding 4,500 young people for an average of 26 days, meaning they will process some 62,000 young people into our country within a year. Not a finger is being lifted to return these young people safely to their own homes. Every effort is taken to put them into sponsors in the United States, and then I learned that once they are placed with sponsors in the United States, unless requested, there is no follow-up. We don't know what happens to these kids after this, deeply indebted to the cartels. And this is just the tip of what's coming. Judd just told me we've had 600,000 illegal immigrants enter this country this year. 400,000 caught and released under the policies of the Biden administration, another 200,000 who have evaded capture. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. The Gallup organization tells us, according to their own polling, there are 42 million people living in Latin America and the Caribbean who intend to come to this country if they can. And under Joe Biden's policies, they are. And if that is what we are watching, it is the beginning of a mass migration of truly historic proportions, one which no civilization has ever survived. I don't buy the notion that this is incompetence or carelessness or recklessness. I believe, from what I have seen, this is a deliberate policy by this administration to fundamentally change the culture, the electorate, and the founding principles of our country. As Judge Carter said, America had better wake up fast, because all of this is coming to every community in the country. Under these policies, every town is now a border town. We will be seeing it in classrooms flooded with children who can't speak English. We will see it in our local emergency rooms flooded with illegal aliens demanding basic care. We will see it with the proliferation of gangs and crime as dangerous criminal illegals under these policies, instead of being deported, are being placed back into our neighborhoods. And most of all, we will see it as a lack of opportunity for working families who are now having to compete with this flood of low-wage illegal labor. This is what's coming. We have got to stand up and say no. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And now, from Virginia's 9th, Morgan Griffith.
Thank you. Brian, I appreciate you putting this all together. I came particularly because, as the ranking Republican on the Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee of the Energy and Commerce Committee, we have jurisdiction over the emergency site that we visited this morning at Fort Bliss. And I wanted to know, what are we doing? What are we doing? Because the Biden administration, during the campaign and immediately after being inaugurated, made it clear to unaccompanied minors, come on in, come on in. But they weren't prepared. And so this facility at Fort Bliss had to be immediately set up because they had no preparations at the Office of Refugee and Resettlement, which oversees these emergency intake sites. And what did I find? I found that we have a lot of caring individuals there. But when they release these young people under the age of 18, once they hit 18, they send them on their way no matter what. But if they're under the age of 18, they don't really vet the sponsors. They have sometimes just a name on a piece of paper. If there's an acknowledgement that they'll take them in, they do a cursory, if it appears to be a family member, they do a cursory search on the internet. Not on the internet looking at what's going on in the country of origin, but our internet, to see if those people who they're going to send them to are in fact law-abiding citizens. And then I got a little hot, I have to admit, because at one point they said, well, we don't do any more than that unless we see evidence of abuse and neglect. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I was an attorney for over 30 years. I practiced in the juvenile courts of Virginia. I dealt with parents who lost their rights. And guess what? If you are an American child and your parent or your guardian sent you into the desert and said, you go over there and we'll try to catch up with you somewhere down the road, we would take the custody of that child away from those people. Because by definition, releasing children into the desert or releasing them to travel a long distance by themselves is, by definition, neglect. I am very concerned about what we're doing, and I will be working to make those policies change. I also asked about COVID, and while they test them on a regular basis, and they separate those that test positive, they have taken no steps as of today to start vaccinating these young people. And keep in mind, at Fort Bliss, they only have them from 13 to 17. So every one of those young people is eligible to get a COVID vaccine, but OR hasn't gotten approval yet from their internal bureaucratic organization. So from my viewpoint, we should never have encouraged them to come in the first place, but once they're here, we should do a little bit more to protect these children. Thank you very much. I yield back.
Thank you very much, Morgan. I'd also remind people to remember that the two little girls that were dropped over the wall from a 14-foot wall by some coyotes, some cartels, either maybe working for them or probably definitely getting paid by them, happened right up here. And I just want to, I would like to ask a question. How many more kids are going to have to be dropped from a 14-foot wall, as I said earlier, before we see action coming from this administration and the child abuse and the crisis that has been created down here and getting worse by the day? Okay, the next one, our next member from Missouri's 4th District is Miss Vicki Hartzler. Thank you, Vicki.
You bet. Thank you, Brian. I do represent Missouri's 4th Congressional District, and I'm on the Armed Services Committee and the Agriculture Committee. I'm a former teacher, and I'm a mom. And what I saw today just broke my heart, and it scared me. Because this policy, President Biden, it's not compassionate. It is cruel. When we incentivize children to come here without their parents, and they are assaulted on the way here, and when they arrive, 50% of them do not have anywhere to go. That is not compassionate. When we put people in line who have been trying to become citizens here legally for years, and yet we make them wait and we incentivize others to come, that is cruel. That is cruel to the people who are trying to follow our laws. And it is very, very costly. We learned today that when they arrive, the children are given all tests, they're given medical treatment, they're given clothes, they're taken and they're given food, and unlimited amount of food. Unlike our school children in America, who in their school lunch program are limited in their caloric intake. There's such a difference and disparity of how American kids are treated versus these who are here. And then when 50% of them have nowhere to go, they're flown at taxpayer expense in airplanes and in buses to other parts of the world, other parts of the country, when we have not thoroughly vetted those children. That is not compassionate. That is cruel. As I talked to one Border Patrol agent, she shared about the stories she is hearing from these children of the sex trafficking, the sexual assaults that they have endured. And yet President Biden is incentivizing them to come here. It is wrong. We need to go back to the policies that were working under President Trump. We need to finish having a safety barrier at the southern border. We need to reinstate the stay in Mexico policy and in an orderly fashion process those who are coming here for asylum to make sure that they truly are in danger. And we need to reinstate the agreement with the countries that are sending them. And we need to make sure that we're prioritizing America first and we are being humane to others in this world. So, thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you so very much. And now from Mississippi's 4th District, Stephen Palazzo.
Well, Brian, thank you much So thank you very much for orchestrating a border caucus trip to the border. I think it's worth noting there are no Democrats on the border caucus in Congress. I think to achieve a true bipartisan solution of what we are facing, we need to have our input from our Democrat colleagues as well as Republicans. What we are witnessing is a well-orchestrated invasion of our southern border. There's one winner, and that's the cartel. And there's one loser, and that's the American people, not just the present, but future generations. No doubt we have a humanitarian crisis here on the border, helped created and exasperated by President Biden. But we also have to meet it with compassion, and we will continue to do so. But what worries me the most is the huge amount of hard narcotics that's finding its way across the border. We're talking about fentanyl, heroin, and cocaine. They've seized enough fentanyl this year alone to kill every American man, woman, and child 2 times over. And that's what scares me, because these drugs are here and they're going to destroy neighborhoods, they're going to destroy communities, but most importantly, they're going to destroy our loved ones and our families. Foreign nationals are also here. As you've heard, we know many of the people crossing over have been on the terror watch list. In the end, this is a crisis created by Biden. It is criminal in the sense that he would allow this invasion of illegals and hard narcotics into America. And as my colleague said, border security is national security. And without borders, we're not going to be a nation much longer. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Appreciate it. And now from Louisiana 6th District, Garrett Graves. Thank you, Garrett.
Thanks, Doc. This trip has been amazing, and it's really confirmed, I think, a lot of the concerns that you've heard people raise and you've seen reported in the news media. This is a humanitarian crisis, and as Judge Carter said, it is affecting every single state in this country. It's a humanitarian crisis, and that we saw just last month over 175,000 illegal immigrants try and come into the United States. 175,000. That's like Tempe, Arizona, walking over in 1 month. We've seen the numbers increase in terms of interactions or encounters with border agents increase 944% between April of this year and April of last. Nearly 1,000% increase. This is a national security issue, and you heard Congressman Paso talk about it. It's not just folks that are on the terrorism watch list, terrorists trying to come here. We've had 11 Iranian citizens arrested. We've had folks from Russia, folks from China, and other countries that have been caught. What about the ones that haven't? We know the ones that are being caught are just a fraction of the overall folks that are trying to cross this border illegally. And it's a funding issue. And you heard folks talk about how they're refusing to even provide data on appropriations, but we do know one thing. We know that they've transferred $2 billion from coronavirus and stockpile numbers to handle all this influx of immigrant unaccompanied minors, which is 17,000 just last month alone. $2 billion. It's all about the wrong messaging. If we had a disincentive to come into America illegally, if we had a disincentive to cross our border illegally, that would be $2 billion we could be spending on things we need here in America. Things like roads and bridges, things like flood protection, and other federal obligations for our own citizens. And then the last thing is safety. You've heard folks talk about the cocaine, the fentanyl, the heroin, explosive numbers crossing our borders. And we know that much of this fentanyl is actually being manufactured in China. But I want to quote Albert Cotter. Don't take my word for it, take his. He's the acting director of the Phoenix Field Office of ICE. In a recent deposition, he was asked, by releasing these illegal immigrants, not detaining them, not holding them back in Mexico, by releasing them, does that increase the threat, or does it challenge the safety of American citizens? And his answer was, absolutely. Don't take my word for it. Take the law enforcement professionals that are dealing with these folks on a daily basis. Absolutely threatening the safety of our American citizens. This is the wrong policy.
Thank you. Thank you, Garrett. And now from Tennessee's 8th, David Kustoff.
Thank you, Dr. Babin, for putting together today's trip. I tell you, I represent the 8th Congressional District of Tennessee. I'm a former United States attorney nominated by President Bush and confirmed by the United States Senate. When I was a U.S. attorney 15 years ago, one of the main things that we were prosecuting were meth cases from meth labs. We've done a pretty good job of getting rid of the labs, but the problem is now the methamphetamine is coming in through Mexico. And we've heard some of the statistics now about meth, about fentanyl, about heroin, about cocaine, all coming through this border. And I guarantee you, we can all talk to our local law enforcement and they will tell us, because they're telling me, they're seeing this stuff in record numbers. And while marijuana may be legal in some states and some people may think it's safe, we're hearing more and more cases, especially of young people who are using marijuana that they don't know is laced with fentanyl, and it's killing them. It's killing young people in record numbers. And so we've got an obligation. One thing that we can do, and I think we're all supportive of this, is making sure that our folks patrolling the southern border have the resources that they need to do an effective job. We've got to finish building the wall. We've got to finish building a barrier along our southern border. We need to make sure that our border control agents, our military, and the National Guard, that they have the resources that they need so that they can effectively do the job, and we're all committed to doing that. But I've got to tell you, there is no excuse for not being here. It's one thing for us to read congressional reports, to read your news reports, to hear what's going on and see what's going on at the southern border. It's another thing to actually be here and see it, to see it firsthand. I'd strongly urge all 435 members of the House of Representatives to come here and see what's going on and talk to the men and women who are doing the hard work patrolling our border, to hear firsthand what's going on. I strongly encourage the Vice President, who's been commissioned as the head of this border task force, to get down here, to come to El Paso, to see the southern border, to see what the administration can do. We know what we can do, and we can vote to make sure that they've got the resources, but the administration has to set the policy. And as long as they are unwilling to do it, this is Biden's border crisis, and he needs to take control of it right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. And now from California's 25th, Representative Mike Garcia.
Thank you, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Well, I want to thank you all for coming out. I want to echo Mr. Kuffstoff's sentiment that every single member of Congress, every single member of the House and Senate and of this Biden administration should come down here to see it firsthand. I'm here today as an American above all things. What we are seeing and what we witnessed this morning and what this country has seen over the last 4 months is a transformation of our country that cares now more about those who come here illegally than we do our own kids, than we do our veterans, than we do our seniors or those who are homeless in our own streets. As a first-generation American, I'm here, the son of someone who immigrated from the country right across the river from Sonora, Mexico, and I understand why people want to come here. But there's a process to that. This is a nation of law and order. All 4 billion people on this planet should want to come to the United States, but we have to do it in an orderly fashion. I'm here today as a parent. I have a 14-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I cannot, as a parent, imagine dropping my 4-year-old from that 20-foot wall that's behind us. I can't, as a parent, be okay with sending my kids overseas to a foreign country unescorted in some of the worst environments. And I can't, as a parent, understand how our own federal government right now is not doing background checks on these sponsors that we're sending these kids who are aged 12 to 17 to various states in our own country. Our government right now is an enabler to one of the worst child harassment and endangerment issues we have seen in this globe's history. I'm here today as a legislator. I don't understand a policy at the national level that opens our borders, that incentivizes people to come here, that gets them free things, doesn't enforce its own laws written in the Constitution. I'm here as an appropriator who has domain over the Commerce and Justice Subcommittee, who pays for some of these facilities where they don't allow us to come in. The El Paso Intelligence Center will not let us come in and take a tour. These are taxpayer dollars, and I'm accountable for making sure that that money's being used in a useful manner. I can't understand as an appropriator when we're taking a visit, I have a one-star admiral explain to us that he doesn't know how much he's spending on an annual basis. These are our budgets. These are our programs and our taxpayer dollars. I'm here as a representative of California's 25th district. Our district is not on the border. Our district is about 300 miles inland. But we see thousands of illegal marijuana grows, 95% of which are being manned by the cartels and operated by illegal immigrants. They're stealing our land. They're stealing our water. They're stealing our tax dollars in the form of natural resources and infrastructure, and they are committing crimes in our own backyard. This isn't a border town. This is in our backyard in the suburbs of Los Angeles. And above all things, guys, I'm here as a human being. What I'm seeing today, what this nation has seen over the last 4 months, and just a quick change in policy should make us all sick. Whether you're press sitting here today or someone at home, imagine your child crossing that river unaccompanied right now in this heat. And it's May. Imagine when it's August, September, when it's 110 degrees out. They're living in a facility where there is no accommodations, where there's no accountability for where your children are going. This is not a commander-in-chief who is simply putting his head in the sand. He is intentionally creating this policy, which has now induced one of the largest national security and humanitarian crises our nation has seen in its 245 years. Thank you, Mr. Babin, for hosting us. Appreciate y'all being here.
Thank you, Mike. Powerful. And now from Alabama's 2nd District, Mr. Barry Moore.
Yeah, so Brian, thank you for hosting this. And I'm a freshman legislator. I've been in office, I don't know, all of about 140 days. About 117 days or so ago, Joe Biden decided to stop the Trump wall. And he has created a crisis on this southern border. This is my 2nd trip here. And guys, it's a crisis. You got to understand that these people coming across the border, they don't have the money to pay the Mexican drug cartel. So we're creating two things with current policies out of the White House of Joe Biden. We're creating drug mules. In other words, if you agree as an immigrant from Mexico or El Salvador, Nicaragua, wherever you're coming from, and you have a bill to the Mexican drug cartel, who, by the way, controls your U.S. southern border right now, you can backpack a little fentanyl, a little heroin, whatever you want to backpack, cocaine, and pay your passage. Or you can become a slave to the Mexican drug cartel. And oh, by the way, they know where your family lives. So you're going to make those payments back to Mexico, to the drug cartel, to pay your passage to this country. Now, as a nation, we have a responsibility to secure these borders, to secure this southern border, and to protect these resources that the taxpayers of the United States of America have put into the Treasury. We have that responsibility. That's why we're here. None of our Democrat friends are here. Kamala Harris hadn't been here. I've been here twice. She's Vice President of the United States. She's the drug czar. 60 days on the job. She's been everywhere but the southern border. We as media and individuals need to call them out and hold them accountable. Guys, we have a crisis on this southern border. And it's not stopping here. It's like the judge said, those drugs are not stopping in El Paso. They're coming to your hometown. They're coming to your community. They're coming to your local schools. And they're hard drugs. It's not the marijuana anymore. It's a fentanyl. It's a heroin. It's a cocaine that damage communities indefinitely for the long haul. We need to pray for this country. We need to secure our southern border. And thank you for being here today. I appreciate it.
Well said, Barry. Thank you. And for Minnesota's 1st District, Mr. Jim Hagedorn. Yes, sir.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Dr. Babin, for the opportunity and for setting up the trip. Look, you know what sometimes gets lost when we're in a situation like this, we're making a tour and we're talking about this issue, is that the United States of America is the most generous country in the world when it comes to immigration. We enable over 1 million people each year to come here legally. And as Republicans, we honor that. We cherish that. That's something that we think we want to champion. But as you saw during the Trump administration, we draw the line at illegal immigration. And President Trump and Republicans were able to end a lot of the policies that were causing problems. We ended catch and release. He was building a wall. We were making sure that people, when they wanted to claim amnesty to the United States, did so from outside the United States, deep into Mexico or other countries where their claims could be adjudicated. President Trump and Republicans enabled ICE to go out there and try to deport the 1 million people who have been ordered deported in this country by a federal judge. That's a lot of people. But what happened? Joe Biden and the Democrats came in and immediately unraveled all those policies.